Alright, hello once again, Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College. And as part of the Rankin Technical College AWD, that's Application and Website Development Program, AWD 1111.NET Framework with Web Databases class, I've been going over a series of video presentations for the textbook we will be using for the class for the fall 2019 semester, that being Pro ASP.NET MVC 5. I'm right near the end of Chapter 2, and I did something very foolish, and some of you might have even recognized it. That is, I put in all the right code, but I forgot to include my links to the Bootstrap CSS and the Bootstrap Theme CSS. That should fix the problem that we were having. All right, so what I want to do is go back up to the top here. And we've got our own style sheet, which we want last. And then we want these two links. So let me save and let me try to run this again. Our original screen that comes up will not change. We're having a party screen or whatever the heck it was called. But what should change drastically now is our form. It's possible I made other errors. I don't believe that I did. So we've got that. We've got this. We click that. And yeah, that's the way it's supposed to look. Okay? So what is left, as we are on the bottom of page 46, we've got a few pages left here in the chapter. Again, notice all of our stuff is working now. See that? And when we come in here and fill it all in, and say that, yeah, I'll be there, etc., everything is good. Okay. So again, I'm on the bottom of page 46 in our text. The last view to style is the thanks.cshtml. You can see how to do this in listing 223. You'll notice the markup is similar to the index to make the app easier to manage. It's a good principle to avoid duplication of code. That's why in Chapter 5 we'll talk about layouts, and in Chapter 20 partial views, so we don't have to do a lot of putting the same stuff in, for lack of better words. I'm going to just try to grab the entire file here. So this is our thanks.cshtml. All right. And I'm going to go down if I can. Whoops, not there. No. All right. I'm going to go down to the bottom of that file, which is right there. All right. That should be everything that's in the file. Copy it to the clipboard. Go back over to here, go to our thanks.cshtml, Control-A, Control-V. All right, now we've got in our Bootstrap. There's our Bootstrap stuff there and here. So again, let's save it. Let's run this one more time. And guarantee that all three of the forms, or all three of our pages, I should say, have now been styled. Okay, so we now have that. This. Oops. That should be green. I don't know why it isn't. And we've got that. Now, we're not done yet, but we're doggone close. So I'm going to stop the run here. And I'm going to jump back into the code. And the author says the lead class applies some of the basic styling. That's why where it's got here class lead, it's great, etc. This is a little bigger than it would be otherwise. It's a Bootstrap class. All right, completing the example. The last requirement for the example app is to email the completed RSVPs to the party organizer. This could be done by adding an action method to create and send an email message. All right. Rather than doing that, the author is going to use the webmail helper method. This is not part of the MVC framework, but it does allow the example to be completed without getting into the details of sending an email. So, I want the email message to be sent as I tender a thanks view. So the author says we want to put this in our thanks.cs HTML file. So this will be right up above the div. So in the body right at the beginning. So I'm going to grab this, but I'm going to change it. Whoops. When you try copying like this, sometimes it has a tendency to not work all the time. All right, but as you can see, it's going to save me and you a tremendous amount of time doing it this way. So let's go into our thanks.cs HTML file, and at the beginning of our body here, we want to put in this. All right. Now they put in a bunch of stuff in here, but this is, for lack of better words, I think this is a garbage SMTP server, a garbage port, a garbage username, a garbage password, etc. Now, at the school I used to be at, they would never let me do anything where we could write code that would send stuff over their mail servers. Just because if you do something incorrect, it is possible to bring the mail server down. So I think this would work, but it's going to send it out to from rsvps@example.com to whomever we put in there. All right, so I don't think it would work. That said, what the hey? Let's try it anyway. And while we're waiting for this to come up, all right, the author says that he's added a razor expression that uses the mail helper, etc. Everything has been put in a try-catch block, so if it doesn't work, we can let the user know. A better approach would be to display a separate error view if the message couldn't be sent. It would be a cleaner way of doing things. So in this chapter, the author created a new MVC project from scratch and showed you many of the things that are involved here. All right, so let's see. Okay, RSVP now. My info. No, I can't come there. Submit it. All right, sorry, we could not send the email to confirm it. So it's letting me know there was an error, and I believe it's with the SMTP server. We're not going to worry about that. That's just fine. We've made terrific progress on what we're doing in here thus far. All right. So in the next chapter, I wanted to very quickly mention a couple things. It's called the MVC pattern. The author says, before I start digging into the details of the MVC framework, I want to make sure you're familiar with a pattern. That's fine. Okay? So they talk about the history of MVC, understanding the pattern, understanding the domain model, etc., comparing MVC to other patterns, understanding the architecture, three-tier architecture, variations of MVC, building loosely coupled components, and they start to get into a fairly complex topic which is called dependency injection. All right. Injecting dependencies, etc. Getting started with automated testing. So the author creates a class from an imaginary application. Okay, I think this is almost the only code in this chapter that's going to be written. Is it what that the code that starts on about page 61. All right. So I'll be back to start with chapter 3 in just a couple minutes.